So we're rolling here, and ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest this week, Clark Stringfellow. He's the athletic director and head baseball coach at Bountiful High School in a great state of Utah. And to my knowledge, it's a suburb of Salt Lake City. Is that correct, Coach?
That's correct, yes.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is talk about the kids being back in school, physically on campus, athletics. You guys are currently, is this a 5th week or 6th week of high school football?
We are currently in our 5th week. We'll be playing our 5th game on
Awesome.
Friday now.
And so I'm going to talk about that, what it's like for the kids to be back on campus, type of protocols, what you guys are doing, the success that you're experiencing. There's a lot that I want to get into with that, temperature checks, testing, ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world of COVID. It's COVID all day, every day, but you guys are finding a way to make things work. And that's really, really exciting. But Coach, one of the things I want to get into, and the last 3 days have been nuts. I know you said when we spoke the other day that it was 93 on Monday. And then yesterday you had 90 mile per hour winds. The schools are closed, and then you got some snow. Let's talk about that first.
Okay. So this week, honestly, has been the craziest week of the whole season so far. We were 93 degrees on Monday, beautiful, sunny, smoky. We got a lot of the smoke from California coming up here, but we're still good. And then everything changed. We had a major wind event, weather change that brought 90 mile an hour winds into our where we're at on the western slope of the Wasatch Mountains. They called it some kind of a wind event that is unprecedented. You very rarely, if ever, see it in this.
So you guys haven't. So if I recall correctly, you said once a year you'll have a couple of days or whatever where there's a lot of wind, but nothing like what you guys have seen the last few days.
No, and not this early in the season. Usually it's more in the winter time when we see it, or late fall. This being, September 8th. We had along our area, our county, we had sustained wind gusts were equivalent to a Category 3 hurricane. At the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, there was one gust at 112 miles per hour. In our area, it was more in the 80 to 90 mile an hour range.
Wow.
We have a lot of damage within our city, within our county.
So yeah, let's talk about the damage. What did the winds do? What are you guys currently doing for cleanup, that type of thing? Any injuries? Were all the kids at home? I know there's I asked like 5 questions there, but let's start with the damage.
So the damage in town was limited to mainly trees and fences and a few roofs. Nobody, to my knowledge, was injured. There was one death, not necessarily in our city, but in the state because of the winds.
Wow.
We had some damage at our school, mainly some broken windows, some trees, fixable things, and then all of a sudden, one of our light towers in our football stadium toppled over, and we actually have it on video. And I can send the video to you.
Please do, sir.
It toppled over on the east side. It was already kind of vulnerable. And with the winds and the sustained winds, we had 2 more light towers that were leaning towards being toppled. And that caused a great worry because we were supposed to host a football game on Thursday night, tomorrow night, versus our crosstown rival. And that was supposed to be televised on live TV. And in the last 24 hours, we have switched the location and the time and a couple other variables 2 or 3 times already, and still are kind of in limbo on what we're going to do. Our stadium right now is is unsafe. It's unusable. We're hoping that we can remove the poles that have fallen down from the windstorm maybe tomorrow, and make it safe by maybe Friday. We won't have lights, we won't have sound, but we will have a scoreboard and we will have a playing surface. So
Yeah.
at this point, we'll just kind of make do with the rest and try to make it the best we can and go from there. But
wow, that's kind of crazy. 90-mile-per-hour winds, and you said outside there was gusts of up to 120-mile-per-hour winds in surrounding
112.
areas.
112 actually.
112.
Yeah. So there is
that's like hurricane-esque,
yes,
right?
yes. Category 2, I believe it was, and it's more widespread. The damage up north from our city, maybe 5 to 10 miles north, is a lot greater than it is where we're at. The city right next to us declared a state of emergency because of so many down power lines and trees. We actually have well over 100,000 people in our area still without power.
Wow.
And so football is kind of on the the back burner for right now, but we still got to try and make it work for this week.
So was this pretty much statewide, or was it relegated to, a certain 100-mile radius, or what were we talking about, Coach?
Probably north of Salt Lake City, upwards of probably 60, 50, 40 to 50 miles north from Salt Lake, 40 to 50 miles north. Most of the winds were contained with, the heaviness of the winds, the speed of the winds were greater about 10 to 20 miles north of Salt Lake. And then they lessened as they went farther north and lessened as they went farther south. So
how long did it last?
What's that?
How long did the windstorm last?
Tuesday morning, they started about 3:30 in the morning and lasted pretty much till about 8 o'clock last night. Wow. We were supposed to get another round this morning, which we did a little bit, but not as bad. So hopefully they're gone now, and we're back to some decent fall weather.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you hear about this stuff in Denver all the time. One day in Denver it'll be 90, next day it'll be 50. You guys kind of have the same weather there. Is that kind of the case?
Pretty close. Yeah. We're pretty close to Denver in terms of elevation and type overall of weather. Climate. We did have a little bit of snow in some parts of the state, just east of where we're at. We had a few snow.
One day 93, the day before 93, the following day 90-mile-an-hour winds and a little bit of snow.
Right. Yeah.
That's it's kind of insane, Coach.
And it's all part of this new normal that you have to be really flexible and able to change in a heartbeat when whether it's a case of COVID or if it's a 90-mile-an-hour windstorm or if it's snow. I think it's teaching us all a lot of lessons about how to be a little bit more flexible and adaptable to things as they happen.
And Coach, it seems like you guys have been really good at that. And we're going to move into some of the COVID stuff, but just kind of to wrap up the last few days, you said there was one death caused by the storm.
Mm-hmm.
Any other injuries or?
Not to our knowledge at this point. The great thing was that it happened, in the middle of the night where not a lot of people were outside. A lot of people don't want to go outside when these things happen. It's very dangerous. There's a lot of trees down. There's a lot of power lines that are down. There's a lot of, I think the biggest
debris.
Thing. Yeah, the biggest thing in Utah is backyard trampolines, and those things are like frisbees in the windstorm. And so people were secure. We brought all of our patio furniture in, and tried to secure our place to the best we can. It was still pretty. It keeps you up at night. That's for sure.
I'm sure there's a lot of video over the last couple of days from people's cell phones. Yeah, and I'm sure some of these folks went outside to experience a little bit of the craziness. At least some of the folks that are daredevils, if you will.
Right. Yeah. There was a boy just down the street from where I'm at who was on a skateboard with a helmet on, and he had it look like it was a bed sheet yesterday morning. And he was hoping that the bed sheet would catch a little bit of wind and
he'd go flying,
send him down the road. But I didn't see him actually get going, but I knew what he was doing. And
wow.
It was kind of funny to watch. So,
well, yeah, it's funny. We used to try and do that with umbrellas when we were kids, but
right.
Live in Southern California, we didn't get that type of wind, but 90-mile-per-hour winds, that's insane. But you guys are able to adapt. You have a plan moving forward as it pertains to the kids on campus. And yes, everyone that's watching or listening, kids are on campus in Utah. And Coach, I remember you said before that it was going to be up to the individual school district. That was, per the governor. Is pretty much all the school districts back in school, meaning kids on campus, or does it still really depend on that particular district?
Well, right now it kind of depends on the district, but I would say that probably about 90% of the school districts are in some kind of a in-school and remote situation right now. There's only one school district to my knowledge, and that's Salt Lake City School District, which is in the heart of downtown, where most of the COVID cases, most of the hot spots were flaring for quite some time. That district is all remote right now. They are not prepared even for that. They were short on the number of cloud books and tablets that they needed for kids to have at home, so they're kind of in limbo. The rest of most of Utah on the northern half have been kind of migrated into either a shortened week or at school one day, at home the next. Our school district is on a hybrid schedule where the first half of the alphabet goes to their A-day classes on Monday and to their B-day classes on Wednesday. The second half of the alphabet goes to their A-day classes on Tuesday and their B-day classes on Thursday. And then Friday is kind of a remote learning day. And
so Coach, what's it like in a classroom? Are you guys in a classroom? Are you guys outside? Because I know some schools are setting up, getting a bunch of canopies to be outside. What's the social distancing or the distancing, whatever you want to call it,
right
within the classroom? Is that taking place, or what are the protocols to be back on campus? And how were you guys able to get that passed through the district? And I'm sure there was executive orders you had to follow from the governor. Talk a little bit about that.
So our governor made a decision early in the summer that we would make every effort we could possibly make to going back to school amongst the new normals of social distancing and masks. He made it very clear early on that masks were mandated in the schools and signed that into an executive order, which we're all following.
Sure.
And it's working. The social distancing is another key component that's tough to maintain in every aspect of the school setting.
Right.
Having only half of your alphabet helps tremendously with that. A typical class of 36 kids is now 18, which allows for more of that spreading out phase. We're doing a lot of hand sanitizing, a lot of disinfecting of equipment, tables, chairs, a lot of signage that's up that encourages people to.
Well, Coach, I was talking to a friend the other day about maybe some of the benefits of COVID. One of which is that stuff is just going to be a heck of a lot cleaner moving forward, because I don't think, I don't think the using a hand sanitizer is going to drop, or cleaning, like if you're at the grocery store, they have some of the kids, the employees cleaning some of the carts, and then you're talking about at school, the surfaces, this, that. Like, I think that's all a good thing. And if we've learned anything from this, is to keep this stuff sanitary, right? And to wash more. Question though, we're wearing, masks. We offer masks, custom masks. I think they're going to look really cool in the stands. I don't know if you guys have had like a red out or a blackout, people wearing the custom masks, but if you have the masks on, is the distancing still as important? What have you guys seen? Is there any data on that since you guys have been back to school and in the classroom?
So I think there is. I was at first I was skeptical about wearing a mask, but then as I looked into it a little bit more and found that the numbers were dropping because we were wearing masks and because we were staying out of large groups. I mean, the numbers were falling, and the number of deaths were falling as well. So in the school setting, all students are required to wear a mask the whole time. And we do have a period in each 90-minute period where we can allow the students to take their masks off for 5 minutes so that they can, breathe. You can't talk during those 5 minutes. You have to stay socially distanced. But it is working. It is working, and we're seeing those numbers come down.
Coach, how many kids are in a classroom, did you say?
I would say a typical classroom of about 30 kids, you're going to have about 15 per classroom, which allows you to spread out a little bit more.
Sure.
Than if you had 30 kids in there.
So are the other 15 online at that time, or it just limited to 15 per class, whether it's virtual or in person?
So if you're not in school, then you're required to do 40 minutes per class on your remote day. We as teachers, I think, have been way overworked this last summer and even into the fall in trying to prepare both an online curriculum and a live curriculum, and trying to migrate those into one curriculum so that your students, when they're home, they are learning remotely through Canvas or through some online program. And then when we're live, and you only see your kids per class period once a week right now, you spend a lot of time talking to them. You spend a lot of time, interacting with them, pencil and paper type stuff, where you can focus on what they need to do when they go home. And so that's, so far we're 3 weeks into the school year. I've to my knowledge, there's only been one COVID case reported at our school in 3 weeks' time, and wearing masks and social distancing and sanitizing your hands to the point where they're pretty clean.
And so that remarkable case, and just out of curiosity, and I'm not sure if you know or not, but did that student actually experience symptoms?
Yeah, and they did, and the ones that were around that student, that were within that social distancing boundary, in other words, they were sitting close by or in proximity, they were put into a quarantine as well. But some of those students have not experienced any symptoms as of yet, to my knowledge.
What's interesting, Coach, is that I read on the CDC that if you're within 6 feet, so the social distancing range, you need to be talking to someone for 15 minutes or longer to be exposed to COVID, and that's without a mask. So you guys are wearing the masks. That's part of the protocol. It seems like that's working. I take it that student recovered.
Yeah, this was just last week. So
okay.
I don't know the update as of now, but you're correct. In fact, that's the protocol right now that we're using in athletic tracing is if you're within someone for within 6 feet of that someone for longer than 15 minutes, then you're considered
At
um,
risk.
at risk, and then that you would be put on a quarantine regardless of whether or not you've shown symptoms. Um, so for
And it's working.
it's working, and for sports teams, that's your number one thing that you take into everything is stay apart. You know, when you're competing, that's one thing. When you're doing a drill, that's one thing. But when you're not doing those things, then don't gather, because that 15-minute rule will go into effect. And there's some teams in Utah that have had to have the whole team quarantine, and then there's some teams that have only had to have a small group of people quarantine, which have allowed those teams to continue to play. It's just kind of that next man up mentality, you know. We're
So
in
you
a
coach, you guys, this is week 5 for
right,
football.
right.
How are practices? How have they been structured? Are they structured any differently, or are they the same, just with a few modifications? What's been going on there, at least as it pertains to football? Because I think that's a level set for most
Right.
people to understand. Hey, football practice. This is what you do. This is what we can't do, type of thing.
So if you're a participant in football, um, we encourage our kids to have their helmets on the entire time. We I don't think it's prudent to require a kid to stand on the sideline with his helmet on with a mask on. I don't know that there's any data there that would say that that person has to have a mask on. Because in football, I mean, you could be taken from the sideline to the field immediately, and there's just so many things that go on with trying to take a mask off. Um, but if you're a participant, either in a drill or competition or in a practice, as long as you can socially distance, other than during that competition, you're not required to wear a mask. Anybody else that's there, coaches, trainers, staff, where they're encouraged, strongly encouraged to wear a mask, especially during games. We've had to mask up during games, and it's not that big a deal. I mean, if you want to play bad enough, if you want to coach bad enough, you're going to do what the game demands so that you just get it done and make it so kids can play. And I think you're seeing that in Major League Baseball right now. You're seeing it even in college football to some degree. You're seeing that if you take care of the little things and the protocols, you can still make the game work.
And coach, what about hydration? Because usually, you got the water bottles out there, the Gatorade bottles, whatever.
Yeah.
Whomever's sponsoring it, whose ever logo's on there, and the kids are all sharing it. Or you got the water cows out there. Do they still have those anymore?
Some schools do, yeah.
Yeah. So what are you guys doing to make sure the kids are hydrated? I think you mentioned individual, smaller water bottles. What does that look like?
So in a practice setting, let me just take you to football practice week. We start all of our practices at 4 o'clock, and this gives our kids a little bit of time after school gets out to. Right now, we're not using our locker room for football. We're usually letting kids run home. We're in a fairly close area to proximity to our school, so a lot of kids are able to run home and grab their gear, come back for practice. We encourage them to bring their own water right now, their own water jug, and strongly encourage them to use that solely as their source of hydration.
Hmm.
We've eliminated the use of the cows, the big water tanks. We have managers on hand that are filling up a cooler and some water bottles, but they are the only ones that can handle those things. They have gloves on, they have masks on. They are readily available if somebody's thirsty or needs to be hydrated to walk around and squirt it in their mouth, just like you'd see on a college sideline, and it's working. And the kids are hydrated, and the one thing that we're asking our kids to do is report to us what they're drinking and what they're eating more on a daily basis, so that we know that they're getting the proper nutrition and the hydration that they need to be able to perform. And that's it. I mean,
and I want to point this out. It's working.
It's working. Yes.
Kids are back playing sports, a physical sport like football, and they're in close proximity when they're playing, but they're also spread out when they're not involved in a play, right? And they haven't had to modify practice as much as maybe people first thought. You're going into, this is week 5. Now, let's talk about fans, because that's a big deal. You see in Major League Baseball, there's no fans. College football, there's some fans. The NFL, and of course, we all knew there was going to be fans, right? And there's fans. And I said this about a month ago, 2 months ago, the NFL, by week 4, they may be at 100%.
Right.
It's the NFL, they're kind of going to do what they want. And it's at people's own risk, and there's certain protocols that you have to do. But, I know with the game tomorrow night, Kansas City, they're having like 22% capacity, which is, 17, 18,000 people, hold 70 there at Arrowhead. What's it been like for you guys? Fans or no fans?
Okay, most of us are at a 25% capacity right now. We do require that fans do that they, at least commit to the fact that they're not sick, that they don't have any of the symptoms. We're selling only digital tickets. Everything's done online. Everything's scanned through a QR code as they enter our stadium. And most other schools are doing exactly the same thing. We've painted dots on our bleachers to help with social distancing. We are constantly encouraging it. Fans are required in the state of Utah to wear a mask the entire time at all venues where more than 50 people are gathered. And social distancing can't always be, followed at all times. The very next best possible thing is to wear a mask.
Sure.
And our administrations of each of the schools are in charge of making sure that their sides are constantly in accordance with that and obedient to that. We have been able to say, like, for example, our team comes on only on this gate and sits on the west side, and the opposing team only comes in that gate and sits on the opposing side. And so far it's every school's, it's working. Now our gate receipts are way down, but that's what it is. I mean, some gate receipt is better than no gate receipt.
Right.
And so, yeah, we're making less money, but we're playing. And
Coach, I'm gonna point this out too, because I think a lot of people, at least here in California, are not aware of the level of play in Utah. Because out here, you kind of, and really it's based on the population. There's a lot more kids to draw from, and it's more condensed, and there's just an awful lot of athletic kids out here that are really good at sports. Same thing in Utah. You guys have a number of schools that will either come here to California, whether it's NorCal or it's SoCal, to play some of the top teams, or vice versa. Those teams will go to Utah, and your teams will beat some of our top teams. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, let's get into some of the sports aspects of it in recent history, where some of the Utah high school football teams have beat some of the best California teams.
So, something that's happened in recent years is to be able to travel out of state and play competition from other states and try to get better competition, if you say, or for, if it's in the spring, maybe just get out of this crappy Utah weather and get to better weather in Southern California. As of right now, I think most school districts in Utah have kind of clamped down on the travel part and banned it, just because of the unknown of the COVID situation.
Sure.
We're
not playing out here until January anyway. So
well, and the other thing too is the most important part of this whole process is the fact that kids are playing, and it doesn't matter where you play. It only matters that you're playing and that you're learning and you're growing at the same time. And if it means that we don't go on trips anymore, then so be it, as long as we're playing and as long as we're still getting that opportunity. I'm a baseball coach, and last spring was the hardest season of my life, having a full season just canceled, just eliminated. And
Coach, I'm sure you had some players that were going on to the next level, yeah?
yes, yeah, a lot of schools did. And it was devastating to hear all of those stories and see the things that were happening where kids were just, it was taken away from them. And I think they were humbled. I know
Did
I
your
was.
kids did your kids still get an opportunity, whether it's a JC or 4-year? Like, what happened with your kids?
Yeah, I had one player that still had the opportunity to go on, and you know, he's going into a tough situation because a lot of the sophomores at the junior college he was going to were having that opportunity to come back for another year. So it's almost like he was below freshman level because
Sure.
he's going into an unknown. But the great thing for us is they allowed us to play summer sports as club teams, and we were able to play American Legion baseball and have a good season, and you know, it was worth our while to even though it was limited, we still got something out of it. And every kid in my program that played will tell you that it was worth every second of sacrifice for them to be able to come back and get something out of it.
So, I mean, I know you're well aware, and those of you that don't know, there's a lot of club teams, travel teams that are heading to Utah every single weekend to play,
Right.
whether it's soccer, it's softball, it's baseball, it's basketball. I haven't heard so much about basketball, but I'm sure there's tournaments going on. I know that's inside, so it's a little bit different. But it's an opportunity for the kids to play. We may be going up there in a couple of weeks with my daughter's travel team. I don't know. We may not. We may be going out to Arizona. But there's opportunity elsewhere to play, and it can be a fun trip for all involved. But to your point, Coach, the kids get to play, and that's what it's all about, right?
Well, even just with our TV game tomorrow night, we had to come up with some really, you know, tough decisions, and the most important part was safety of our kids, and having missed practice yesterday because of the cancellation of school. We canceled school again today, and even though our school district said we could go ahead and practice, I think the coaches made a very rational decision to take our game that would have been tomorrow night on Thursday and move it to Friday during the day. So
And
that
Coach, just so everyone is clear, this is not because of COVID. This was because of
no,
weather.
this is because of the weather, because our light poles had blown over, and we were fully prepared to move the game to our crosstown rivals venue and play the game there and have it on TV. And we had a conference call this morning, and I thought it was really important that those head coaches make their point. And they were very adamant that the safety of our kids was utmost importance. And so being flexible to be able to move a game and adjust as necessary, even if it meant that they weren't going to be on TV, then that's the most important thing. And I think it goes back to, why are we doing this? We're doing this so kids can play sports. And why do kids play sports? Because they end up becoming better students because they play sports, and they become better leaders. They know how to, you know, they become better employees. They become better college students because of the activities that they involve themselves in. And if we take that away from them because we're not willing to be flexible, or we're not willing to adjust to the new
Well,
norm.
Coach, look at the lessons that you guys are helping these kids learn. So there's a global pandemic, and obviously we've been affected here in the United States significantly. But you guys have found solutions. You found ways to make it work, where in other areas, say in California, we have not, for whatever reason. And we could talk all day about politics, but it's not going to get us anywhere, right? But you guys have found a way to make it work. And to me, in looking at that, your kids are probably saying, hey, the adults here, they're creating solutions. They're not keeping us down. They're trying to elevate us and keep us moving forward. How good does that make you guys feel that you're able to move forward in life and not kind of sit back and wait?
Well, the 3 months that I had to sit there and wait were the worst 3 months of my life. And never did I before ever want to get back onto a coaching field as bad as I did after sitting during the spring. So I think as adults, what we are finding is that the kids will do whatever it takes, even if it means wearing masks to school. They need school. They need in-person school. Their social and emotional learning is so much more important than math, reading, writing, arithmetic, everything else. Those are important, but being able to communicate and establish relationships with people and to talk face to face with people are very important. And so what we're finding with the kids that are going to school is they're being obedient. They're wearing their masks because they want to be there. They don't want to be at home. They don't want to be learning remotely, and they don't want their seasons taken away again. So all the little things that we need to do to change to make it work, we're going to do. And we're going to be super flexible, even if it means we change the venue of a location 4 different times to accommodate kids rather than accommodate a TV station. We're going to do it. And we're going to do it whether it's because of COVID or because of a windstorm. We're going to do it. I think what COVID has taught us is it's taught us that in order for things to be better, we have to be more committed, more obedient, more willing to do those little things that we sometimes don't want to do because they're inconvenient to make it work for people. And
Coach, I'm gonna point this out because some detractors are going to say, "Oh, well, it's Utah, and they don't have the population as, say, California." And yeah, that is true. However, Bountiful, you got over 100,000 people, correct?
correct.
And within the greater Salt Lake area, or in Salt Lake City, there's 1.2 million people, which I saw per Wikipedia. You guys can go look it up if you want. And then in the surrounding areas, all the suburbs, what have you, of Salt Lake, 2.6 million people, okay? That's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. It's not like we're talking about it's a town of 12 or 1,200 for that matter. These are folks, they're smart folks, and they know what the hell they're doing, and they're able to get their kids back to school in the classroom and on the field, which is helping these kids prepare for what they need to do going forward. So in my estimation, and you've had one case and luckily the kid has recovered, didn't spread, people are wearing the masks or social distancing. It sounds like, Coach, you're doing an amazing job. If you could say anything to districts and or politicians in other states, what advice would you have for them to get the kids back in school? And why should they be back in school?
Well, first of all, I think the effort to do all this needs to be a collective effort rather than one person or one body of people making a decision for the masses. As a teacher, as an athletic director, as a parent, I know the value of having kids in school. It often intrigues us teachers that we're never included in it in any of the discussion. When it comes to going back to school, we're just kind of told this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and then we adjust. Teachers have to be probably the most adjustable, most flexible people on the planet. But we're there for one reason. We're there for kids. We didn't get into the profession to think that we were going to make all this money in the world and be the wealthiest people around. We did it because we love doing what we do and we love kids. And same with coaches. And we know the value of in-person instruction. Now, would we like to be in school every day? Absolutely. Would we love to have kids 5 days a week? Absolutely. But right now, that's not the norm that would allow us to do that. So we're going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to take our baby steps to try and work towards getting back to that. And if it means being in a hybrid system, then that's what we got to do. And if it means we got to wear a mask, that's what we got to do.
Coach,
I mean,
I have friends that are teachers, and they've had some pushback with people that are upset that they're not in the classroom and that the teachers are getting all these benefits and they're not earning their salary. And my thoughts is, you should have become a teacher. Because if we don't have the teachers, we don't have the coaches, and our kids have no place to go learn and to develop. So you can sit there and complain, oh, well, the teachers aren't doing their job. You should have become a teacher then. You could have had those benefits. You chose not to. That's the beauty of America. We have choices, at least for now we do. We have choices. They're restricting those. We want all of them back. But you had a choice to become a teacher, and you know what? You still can't. So don't complain about that crap, because these people are doing wonderful jobs. And like Coach said, you had to create a whole new curriculum for virtual and then in person and then together. So you guys have been working, what would you say, 100% more?
Yeah, my wife's a school teacher as well, and in the elementary level. And I think ever since the pandemic hit us and put us at home, I think our workload has increased 1,000%.
Wow.
And both of us worked all summer long, every single day on things that we needed to do to prepare for the fall, whether we were going to be live or remote. We knew that education had to move forward. It's not like you can just stop and go to something else. You still have to educate young minds, and you still have to give them the opportunity to grow. You just have to figure out a way to do it. If anybody thinks I took a 3-month break during the summer, they're 100% wrong, because both my wife and I worked every single day all summer long preparing to go back to work. And I can attest that most teachers did the same. And yeah, it bothers us that people think that we're on a vacation and we're getting paid for having 3 months off, but it never stops. If you're not in the classroom, then you're working on a computer, you're creating digital curriculum, you're creating, maps that will allow kids to work on their own. Someone has to do it for you.
Well,
And
plus
so,
you're an athletic director, which means you're managing the entire athletic department, which means all the kids, the parents, the coaches. Then you got to worry about the administration, the district, scheduling. There's a lot you have to do, and you're still coaching, and you're teaching. So there's a lot on your plate. And you were coaching all summer. American Legion, you said you guys got to play, right, Coach? Right. So how many hours were you putting in just coaching?
So before school started, in the first week of our football game, I put in approximately 90 to 95 hours that week. 7 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night or later, putting in, just doing work, just doing a variety of different tasks, whether it's painting a field, preparing a venue, writing up rosters or reports or whatever. It was constant work every day all summer. I mean, my wife and I took 1 3-day vacation for the summer, and that's it. The rest of the time we spent working. And not every day all day, but a large majority of our summers that should have been ours, it should have been our time off, was spent preparing for this season and this fall, going back to school. And I can attest that any other teacher or coach did exactly the same thing. It seems like it never ended, but that's the profession we got into. That was our choice. And we know that our product is teaching, our product is kids. And we know that we're most effective when we're in the classroom or on the field or on the court. So we will do whatever it takes to make sure that kids have that opportunity. And I think you just work until you can't work anymore. And then when you need time off, you spend it at home. I know I appreciate my family a whole lot more now than I probably ever did, just because I'm with them a lot more. But I know that my daughter, who's a senior in high school, needs school. She needs sports. she needs interaction with others because it helps her learn and it helps her grow. So
So coach,
we're gonna keep battling on.
Coach, last couple of things here, because I know you got to get back at it. So as it pertains to kids being on campus, that's a choice that the parents can make, right? So they can elect to do everything virtually, or they can elect to have their kids physically go to school. Is that correct?
That's correct. Our parents were given the choice to do an all online curriculum or to do a hybrid system where we're going half on, half off. And the half off just means they come to school 2 days a week, and the other 2 days they're at home, and then the third day is all remote. This week's been crazy because we've had to cancel school twice because of the windstorm. So
because of weather,
because
not
of
COVID,
weather,
because
not
of weather.
COVID, yes. And just this year alone, I mean, we've had to cancel school for snow in January, COVID in March, April, and May, and now a windstorm in September. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be able to adjust. You've got to be able to have things in place where both sides of the fence are benefited, and we just keep battling on and keep grinding it out and keep doing what we do. And kids are better human beings when they can go to school and when they can participate in not just athletics, activities, music, dance, drama, debate, anything that enhances their lives and enhances them to be better people is going to make the situation better.
It's their community. Unity is community, like this podcast, Coach.
Exactly.
The biggest thing being a parent for me is not having that choice. You guys were given a choice. We were not given a choice. It's a mandate. And someone who's more of a libertarian by nature, I like my freedom of choice. And that's what's taken away, and that's what's frustrating, because my kids need to be all the kids need to be in school. I mean, and you guys are able to do that, I hope, sooner rather than later out here when we get rid of all the colors that the governor has implemented, your purple, green, blue, red, whatever the hell it is, that we can get the kids back to school. And I think you guys are a perfect test case, and it sounds like the entire state is, but you guys specifically, you've been in school for 3 weeks. There's been one case that student has recovered. No one else has gotten COVID. You have fans at the stadium watching the games. They have the masks on. We have the mask, by the way. And California Canopy.
Let me point out that our situation with COVID is different than other schools. Other schools have had more cases, and there have been situations in other parts of Utah where bigger groups of people have had to be quarantined. It's just part of this great unknown. But I do know.
But they were able to go back to school.
Right, and then
they quarantine.
I do know that if you are following the guidelines, if you're wearing a mask and you're trying to be as diligent as you can, socially distant, that things are going to work out. And there may be a few cases, there may be more cases. I don't know. We don't know how this is spreading, but we do know that if we just follow the guidelines and do our best and really do what we can do, then things will work out in our favor. And I'm really glad that we're in school. I really am. It makes a big difference to me, not only as a teacher, but as a coach and as an athletic director and as a father and as a husband, to be able to go to work every day and come home. And the bad thing is we now bring it home with us because we're doing it remotely too. So it is what it is, but it's working.
Well, Coach, personally, I love it. Thank you for being you and doing what you do. I think this is very impactful, and I think what it's also doing is that it's encouraging others to look at the model that you guys have set forth. And I think now more folks are perhaps reevaluating where they're at, and then really looking more towards, we can get the kids back in school, because that's That's just something that we need to do as humans. So thank you for everything that you do.
You're welcome. In closing, I think what our High School Activities Association in Utah has done, and what our governor and what our school districts are doing for kids is spot on. Yeah, we're making adjustments and we're flexible and we're doing what we need to do, but it's working, and it's going to work in our favor in the long run to getting them back full time.
And last thing, Coach, when do you think we're going to be back to quote unquote normal? When do you think that is?
I don't know, but I do know that the new normal for everybody is to be a little bit less conceited with your own agenda, and a little bit more willing to adapt to a new agenda and to adapt to new norms, to new flexibility, to doing things that will. I mean, never before did I ever think that wearing a mask and having what comes out of your mouth in the form of droplets meant anything until you actually now notice those things.
Sure.
When you don't have your mask on. But the same thing with washing your hands. It's part of our new life. And so I think normal will be there at some point, but it will be different, and it will be a new normal. And I think overall we're just going to have to be more flexible.
Sure. And Coach, you bring up some really good points. And last thing I want to say about this, if you learn anything, and part of the reason why I love doing this podcast is that I'm able to talk to people throughout the country in different professions, different walks of lives, and that's firsthand information. So what we're getting here, what you guys are getting here, this is basically firsthand information. Is you're going directly to the source. We're talking about people on the front lines. That's what we've been doing for months now. Well, Coach Stringfellow has been on the front lines for a very long time. And now with the kids back in school, what better person to talk to about having kids on campus than Coach Stringfellow? And Coach, I have to say, thank you very much. I do encourage everyone to talk to as many people as you can that are not in your little echo chamber, and formulate your own opinion. The news is what it is, and it's not. And coming from someone that was my major and being in the business for almost 3 years, you kind of understand how things work, and people want to scare the crap out of you, and that's how you get ratings. But it's not always the best information or the right information. But when you actually talk to people who are there on the front lines, you're able to get some really good info, and you're able to formulate your own opinion about what it is that's going on. So, Coach, with that said, keep up the good work. Oh, and last thing, is your game going to be on TV still?
No, it will. Well, we'll stream it live on the internet through a streaming service.
So if people, Coach, if people want to watch that, is that going to be Friday night, or is it going to be Thursday night?
It's going to be Friday afternoon at 3:30 Mountain Time.
Okay.
And you can, I can tell you the website if people want to go on. It's live.ksl.com. That's one source that you could go to get the live stream. Also, deseret.com. And that's,
what is it?
Deseret.com, DESERET, I believe it is, Deseret. That's the Deseret News newspaper in Utah.
Coach, is this every week too? It's streamed every week on these platforms?
Most teams have signed up with a streaming service that they broadcast through either KSL, which is one of the local TV stations, or through the Deseret News, which is one of our local newspaper services, web services. Most teams are paying companies to stream their games because of high risk people that can't maybe attend, grandmas and grandpas and such, that they can get on and still watch their kids play and not miss out.
That's awesome. I love it. And if you guys want to see some really good high school football, maybe you don't see it this week, but you're able to tune in next week and moving forward. Of course, they're going to have playoffs, and you guys are going to have a state champion, correct?
We're hoping. We're hoping that we get to that point, just 1 week at a time, and I hope we get there.
That's all we can ask. Well,
Right.
Coach Clark Stringfellow, the athletic director and head baseball coach at Bountiful High School in the great state of Utah, which is suburban Salt Lake. Thanks again for your time. I know you got to get back after it. 90-mile-an-hour winds. Last couple of days, you guys have a lot of cleanup. Got to make sure the kids are safe. Everyone's safe, ready, raring to go. But, Coach, thanks again for being on a Unity is Community podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, have a good day. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Steady.